In so many ways, Rise Eterna War is a lot like the first Rise Eterna game. It is very much an RPG type game, but with some very interesting mechanics, a very interesting setup. Now this one specifically is more about the gameplay and the mechanics than it is, as where with the first one, it was really more about the length of the game itself and how it was almost like a bite-sized game, but it was also really cool. They kept some of that originality and did something that most guys who buy big vehicles can't do. They added some length. I kid. But anyway, before we get into this game, please hit that like and subscribe button. Help this channel grow. Let's get to like 2,000 before the year. That would be great. When you hit 2,000 subs before the end of the year, I'd be happy. One more tiny note before we continue on with the video. Rise Eterna War right now, as of 8/24/2024, is actually half off right now. So it's $4.99 and typically it's $9.99. So, if it's a game you're interested in, right now would probably be the best time to get it. Probably going to be the lowest discount it'll go for a while. So this game has a couple hooks that really got me in. The first one is actually the story. I was really impressed by some of the writing and just how they were able to convey the message of desperation that the main character is under. As you start the game, you find out you are a general for a very proud kingdom, one that was a little bit isolated, believed to be safe, and very noble. Unfortunately, they weren't as safe as they thought, and a group that would call themselves the Atherians or Assyrians, I don't exactly know how to pronounce their name, they came in, stormed the kingdom, and took everybody out. Most importantly, they took out the king himself and his entire royal line. A majority of the soldiers all laid down their weapons without even fighting. Some of you happened to escape, or in your case, lose battles, but you didn't actually die. Now, some of your men also made it, and you basically were scavengers. You were on the outside of the kingdom, looking to just avoid being picked off by the Atsarians. And as the game kicks off, you're sort of patrolling low-level bandits and basically feeding off of them, if you will. But the game really starts here as it teaches you the mechanics of the gameplay, which are very interesting. And for me, arguably the most important part of the game, as this is the thing that really gets you addicted into it. Now, you basically start off with your general, your main character, and one soldier unit and one mining unit. Important to note here that you can summon as many of these units as you want, but you only have those specific units. So as the game almost looks like a 2D fighter with one character, your general, against an enemy character, there is some crystals in front of you. These crystals are incredibly important. They're your resource, they're your lifeblood. That's what allows you to summon. The more crystal power, the more you can summon soldiers, and you can basically overwhelm your enemy. And that's the whole point of this game, is just to overwhelm your enemy as fast as you can. So often you start off with like 1 or 2 miners. Then you want to focus on taking out the other team's miners. And this whole thing kind of plays out as just a resource management, trying to tactically destroy your enemy. As I was saying before, you really want to just overwhelm your enemy by bringing as many soldiers onto the battlefield as possible, and even mining their crystals so that they can't use those resources against you. Now, the thing that really kind of gets you engaged in this is the fact that you are able to upgrade your soldiers. You're also able to feed your soldiers different foods that will allow you to have a benefit or a perk going into a battle. Unfortunately, that's only relegated to 1 perk per battle, but it's still pretty cool, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. What does happen to cost a lot of money, though, is upgrading your units and giving your soldiers a much more higher base stat point that will allow you to better fight. You also have the ability to get legendary heroes at your side as well. All of these things are discovered through the actual game. You will find more units while fighting different enemies. You'll also discover the legendary heroic characters as well while in these different little scrimmages. Now, the nice thing I can say is that these battles can go from a minute to 10 minutes, and you can actually see your team losing and it looks like it's going to end, and you make a miraculous comeback. But at the same time, the enemies are able to do that as well. Ultimately, I found myself playing this game a lot, far more than what I thought I would, just because at the very premise of it, it seemed really basic, and yet they were able to take this mechanic and make it incredibly fun and addictive. And so for $4.99 or even $9.99, I think this is a really good pickup. And I can say, as far as performance, I never had any issues with the game. Not that it really matters because it is not something that needs like really great performance, but it never crashed, which I think is the most important thing. I will say though, no lag or anything of that nature, but again, I think that that would be difficult to make that happen just in the way that the game is made up. I will say too, that graphically it's not that great, but it is what it is, and what it is actually a pretty fun game. One of those games that you could actually have a good time running through the campaign, or just maybe having a 30-minute play session or something like that, and just looking to upgrade your soldiers. If I was going to give this game a grade, I would probably give it a solid 7.5 out of 10. Now for the last game I'm going to talk about today, it's a game called Thermonuclear, and I have to thank the publishers for a review copy. I really appreciate those guys. So in this game, you're able to control the most advanced weapon in the world, or in this world, as you are in the Third World War, and you're trying to put an end to it. You're actually against the All-Father AI, who has decided to wage war against the entire world, and your only hope is this crazy powerful weapon. And as the game starts, you're actually not that powerful, but you're able to unlock different abilities after each successful run. This game basically plays like a strategy roguelite, where you do have that kind of tactics combat style with the grid-based battlefield, and you're able to move your character around and control them by giving them specific commands. But like I said, there isn't a lot when you start off, and in fact, for me, it was this limitation that actually made the game really difficult. I didn't get very far in it, if I'm being honest, as I did upgrade the character a little bit. I was able to move forward in the story, I suppose. There wasn't a lot of dialogue. There wasn't a lot of things that I felt like kept the game going, but it wasn't also very far into it where I just hit walls, where there were just too many enemies on screen. My little robot guy was not strong enough to take out all the enemies, and I would have this problem running into it again and again. I also have to say that for me, the interface is not the easiest to navigate. I couldn't sometimes tell where I was going or what I was doing, and what I mean by this is as you start off the game, you're in like this hub world, and it's a very basic, very bland, and I didn't know how to even start a mission off. It took me a few minutes to figure that out, and it seemed like, for the most part, the game was just working on training you constantly. It was almost like a demo for what the game is supposed to be at times. Now, granted, when you finally get going, you finally figure out how to navigate some of these systems and to push forward, it can be a fun game, but the lows outweigh the highs, if you ask me. Like I said, the game just takes some incredibly high difficulty spikes where it's not even like your abilities that'll have you beaten, it's just you're completely outmanned. Like, enemies just keep respawning and respawning, and you don't have enough healing items to keep you going. And there is almost no way in which to win those fights, and those happen more often than not. So for me, I didn't really love the game. I didn't really see where you could take opportunities of growth and make your character stronger, and I really honestly didn't even know the story until I looked into the blurb, because the game itself doesn't do a great job of really telling a story either. So ultimately, I guess I would give this game like a 4 out of 10. It's just one of those games that seems like it's difficult for difficulty's sake. I do think that there's a few ideas they could build on, but as it sits right now, I just didn't really find a lot of enjoyment in it, and it's relatively cheap at $7.99. So if you want to take a flyer on it, then go ahead. But like I said, I would give it like a 4 out of 10. That's just my thoughts on it though. Let me know if you've checked out either one of these games, or if you're interested in them, or if you've heard of them. Anything and everything in the comment section is much appreciated. I love each and every one of you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.